Welcome to Hybrid Ops Podcast. This is part of a leadership series, Leadership 1, an episode that I went through and talked about what it means to be a selfless leader. It's up on the podcast. This is episode 2. It's going to be a carryover from what I discussed last podcast and a part of this series. It will be an ongoing series that allows me to really walk through a lot of the failures, a lot of the mistakes, challenges, obstacles that we all face as a leader. What I want to cover in this particular episode is going to be 3 dynamic different areas. The first of that is to follow up and continue with the lead up process. Part of being a leader is very important to understand, whether you call it a chain of command, which I hope you do not, because if you're a leader, then everything should be pretty open and equal, and your team has value, has autonomy, is able to speak their mind. But if you think of it as a vertical leadership, you are leading up through the ranks, and that could be your direct superior all the way to the CEO, depending on what level and what role that you play in your organization. The second part of that is understanding how to open yourself and be vulnerable as a leader. And what does that specifically look like? How do you create a space of trust with your team? How do you work within that to be able to foster this environment in this area where your team feels comfortable coming to you, sharing feedback about the things that are working, the things that are not working, and more importantly, their perspective on things. And then the third part of this leadership I want to get into is more the human connection. And it's really around that not every single lesson should leave a scar. And we're going to get into exactly what that means, and we're going to process that, and we're going to dig into it. But just to kind of set the stage, again, this is going to be an ongoing leadership series. These videos are designed for a multiple purposed area of learning and growth and development and mentorship. And what do I mean by that? My hope is to be able to share through my own experiences, to connect with your experiences. A lot of this could be knowledge that you already know. Some of it could be enhancing the knowledge that you have. But let's go through the difference as we set the stage here of knowledge, development, and mentorship. So you can go to a multitude of areas. You can read business books, leadership books. You can watch YouTube. You can find multiple areas of gurus and experts that can show you and create all this exciting pathway that tell you how they're going to help you grow your business, how to be a leader, how to be a servant leader, how they work with organizations and transform these organizations. And there's all this communication that is out there. And I am sure that with the best intentions, some of it could work. But my hope is to be able to share real life situations and real life stories of challenges, obstacles, failures, and successes. And to utilize that through my own transparency and vulnerability to allow you to be able to pick things up, put yourself in that situation, be able to ask yourself, how would I handle that situation? Am I going through something like that currently? And if I am, are some of these principles, some of these areas that you're able to see that you can slow down and think through a process, will that help me in the situation that I am in? So the first category that we want to cover is leading up. So I shared in the first episode of leadership that I was sent, the first time that I was a multi-unit leader, I was sent into a situation where I was asked to go to a location, resolve the situation, get that location back on track, be able to drive financials, drive revenue, and get the location onto the brand standard that we had created. And I walked through my own approach in that, and a lot of the learnings and challenges and my own failures along the way to get to a point to understand exactly how to handle and approach that situation. So that's the first side of it. The second side, though, is how to lead up and what kind of leadership that I was working with that trusted me enough with zero credibility to walk into a situation and give me the opportunity and to listen to the feedback that I was sharing and then get behind me, support me, and become the greatest support mechanism that I had had. There's two leaders specifically that I was working with in this situation. Both of them were leading the division or the region that I was in. And the element of humility that it takes for that style of leadership, for both of them, to give me the latitude, to give me the runway and ability to orchestrate through the entire region and to recreate the approach to a low volume location versus the standardized approach that had been going from a brand standpoint. Now, from my side, to lead up, to gain that trust, I had to know my business. So my facts were where they needed to be. I didn't use terminology such as I think, I feel, I believe, I hope. Those statements have no place from a factual standpoint in business. They definitely have their place when it comes to culture. They definitely have their place when it comes to the connection of leadership to people. But that is not what I'm describing right now. What I am describing right now is I understood the financials that needed to be able to be executed to get the location back on path and back on track. So I used facts. I used data. I ran the numbers. I pulled the square footage of the space. I tracked where the revenue was, where the break-even point for the overall net income that was needed for that location. I broke down department by department of how much money that it took to fill the square footage of the offering and the program that we had set in the location. And then where they could actually afford and the delta between the two. And then I created clear systematic actions that were going to be measured, that were timely, and that I could communicate constantly to my leadership, so that they had true visibility of what it was that I was doing. In a high-risk situation like this, very pertinent that you're able to turn a location around, especially when you're a multi-unit leader. It's one thing to go in and say, I'm going to take a different approach. I'm going to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. I had this conversation with one of these leaders. And it went like this. You absolutely should go in there and make your own relationships and build your own connections. You absolutely should go dig in and look at it from a different perspective. So I was empowered from the very beginning by my two leaders that I had. And again, they gave me the ability to step into the situation. So I was able to read between the lines and take the latitude that I was given, lead up the proper way, speak to my leadership in a way to where nothing was emotional. Everything was from a factual base, and this is where I'm at, and this is the incremental progress that I will be making in the time frame, and this is the responsibility and accountability that I'm holding for myself first and foremost, because it starts with me. And second, to the store leadership, the team member base, and the overall culture, the brand, and for all stakeholders that are involved. So leadership up. One, there has to be a common goal and trust that's built into that. Second, you need to be completely crystal clear and aligned to what the vision and the strategy and what the ask is that your leader is giving you. From there, You utilize that to say, I am going to go execute what was given to me. But there are pathways that I believe that if I utilize this type of style in leadership, or based on the factual information, the financials, the numbers, the systems, the tools, I'm able to understand where the gaps are. And then you're communicating that. And you're not communicating it in a way to where it is in any way becoming a stumbling block, an obstacle, or a challenge to any of your peers, mentors, anyone that you've worked with, anyone that's in your team. You have an opportunity to create a complete systematic approach as a team, bring everyone together, utilize everyone's voices, build the relationships in every single situation, every stakeholder in it, get all the advice, and approach it from the most humble way. And by doing so, you build trust, you build credibility, you make connection, and you are able to lead up, lead across, and then you're able to inspire down. Because if you can empower your team member base, if you can be the spokesperson for the team members, for your direct support leadership that reports to you, if you are their voice and you're able to empower them and give them the autonomy, then you're magnifying what it is that they're trying to accomplish, whether it's their ideology, their philosophy. You're able to remove all of their anxiety, their stress, and you go in and you're able to create specific direction and lay that out in a very clear and simple and achievable way. And then lead across with your peers and your stakeholders and lead up with your leadership to be able to gain the trust and earn the latitude. You're not given the latitude. You must earn it. And communication is key through that pathway and that process. I believe you should over communicate where it's pertinent. You don't send communication that is an entire email with 50 paragraphs. What are the 3 to 5 things you are accomplishing this week? You are specific in it. That way it's at the very top. I am going to increase revenue by 5% this week. I am going to fix out of stocks. It will go from 300 to 100 this week. I'm cleaning the back room organization, and I've laid out very clear and systematic process to understand what is on hand, what's max shelf, and exactly what I need. From there, these are the steps that I've taken. These are the actions that I've taken. And then you put the details in the body of the email. It's very quick. Your leadership can see it. Achieving these. If they want to know exactly what you're doing, it's below.